Hello, and welcome to KidsAbility's online workshop on picky eating. Ugh, picky eating. It makes mealtime stressful and unenjoyable. Whether it is the incredible disappointment you feel after making a meal you think will be a winner, or the judgment from friends and family about your child's eating habits, I am here to let you know it's okay, you're not alone, and perhaps we can give you a new perspective on this challenging area. During this workshop, we plan to cover general eating habits of young children, development of skills. We will discuss the role of the caregiver, discuss the impact of picky eating on caregivers and children, and learn some practical strategies to use at home to change the cycle of picky eating and caregiver stress. Food and young children. Here is what we usually expect from children as they develop their own eating pattern. Often, they prefer smaller but more frequent meals, and most of the time prefer routines in their daily life. We usually find they are wanting to eat every 2.5 hours. Variation in their appetite varies. Some days you cannot feed them enough, and other times you feel like they are not eating at all. Typically, they really enjoy simple foods. And they're also developing skills beyond eating during these times, such as grasping with their fingers, targeting their mouth, communicating with their caregivers, and learning the social skills associated with mealtimes. However, as we all know, dawdling and prolonging meals is also very typical as well. Two resources that are helpful for knowing what to feed your child and how much are the Canadian Food Guide and Eat Right Ontario. Both are easily accessed through searching those two titles on Google. Skill development of 3 to 5 year old children. Kids are experiencing so many changes in their brain and body as they grow and develop, which can impact eating and meal times. They move from their high chair to a regular chair, but perhaps with that change they don't feel as comfortable as they did before, or maybe they don't feel comfortable not having any support for their feet. They are progressing from being fed to learning they can feed themselves. And also, they start controlling what does or doesn't go into their mouths. They are noticing similarities and differences between what they have to eat and what others may have, and usually they want what the others have. They have now learned they can say no or refuse food by turning their head away, or even worse, throwing it on the floor. Can we talk about the pure mess that happens when children start feeding themselves? In my house, I was so happy to have a dog clean my floor. However, do you know it's typical and a very important stage of feeding development? There are other areas that have a significant impact on eating. Your child's experience with digesting their foods can also impact how much they want to eat. Children who have issues with constipation or food allergies have learned that eating can mean stomach discomfort. This therefore lessens their desire to eat. Lastly, eating is a sensory experience, and with the amount of sights, smells, and tastes food and eating have, it's no wonder it can be a challenge for children who find these inputs overwhelming or upsetting. But why is my child picky? I'm sorry to say there's no simple answer to this question. Picky eating is usually the result of a combination of many factors, including personality of the child, skills of the child, parent expectations, food availability, and many, many, many more. Next, we're going to look further into what is picky eating. All children can be picky eaters. Okay, let me say that again. All children can be picky eaters. It's actually a stage of development that happens between 2 to 3 years of age where they fear new things. And like all stages of development, the range within that is large. Some may experience a very mild version, and some children may stay in the picky stage for a long, long time. However, picky eating can turn into resistant eaters, and that is a more severe and serious issue. So let's take some time to talk about resistant eaters. What does a child who is a resistant eater look like? Well, they could accept 10 to 15 foods or even less and refuse one or more food groups. That means the entire food group, either no meats or no vegetables or no fruits or no dairy completely. Resistant eaters can also gag or become ill with new foods. And if you're experiencing this type of reaction, although it's difficult to ignore, try to ignore the gagging as long as you feel it's safe to do so. Give praise about trying the new food despite the gagging and continue to offer the food, as often this reaction lessens over time. And finally, try to be calm. And this is very difficult because often the child will pick up on your anxiety and this will heighten the situation. Food jags can also be a part of resistant eating. Food jags can be explained as a child insisting on one or more of the same foods to be present at every meal and prepared in the exact same way. And this can even include the brand and the packaging. Unfortunately, food jags often lead to food elimination, as often they will get tired of these foods and do no longer want to eat them. What are some red flags that you have a resistant eater? Well, as a caregiver of a resistant eater, you may be feeling or experiencing that meal times are long and you dread them. Eating has become a source of constant worry that your child is not eating enough and is lacking in nutrition. You have developed highly creative ways to try and get your child to eat, but you feel their diet is getting more and more narrow. As we proceed in this presentation, we're going to be discussing these resistant eaters. However, we will still use the term picky eater. But keep in mind, we are really talking about picky outside of a typical picky eater. Feeding roles. What really is our job as a caregiver when it comes to eating? Parents are responsible for preparing what to eat and deciding when to eat, and children are solely responsible for deciding how much to eat and whether they're going to eat or not. We as caregivers need to accept that we cannot make a child eat, and that distracting them, trying to fool them by either substituting foods or offering rewards for eating are all short term strategies that can have very long term behavioral effects. Picky eating cycle. As caregivers, we have to be careful not to fall into the picky eating cycle. For example, when we get worried our children are not eating enough, and then we give them attention around the issues, such as, come on, eat your apple, come on, eat the rest of your dinner. Then, as per usual, the apples or the dinner is refused, and then we offer something else. Okay, you're not going to eat that. Would you like a fruit pouch? Of course, the child accepts, and now has figured out if they refuse the food, you often get the food you want anyhow, so why bother eating it? As a parent and caregiver, we must control what is offered. However, easier said than done. We all fall into this trap at one time or another. And with a typical picky eater, it's not a huge deal. But with our resistant eaters, being consistent with our parent roles during eating is the most important. Changing the cycle. Offer one option at mealtime. If your child refuses, then place the sandwich back in the fridge. And if they tell you that they're hungry, offer the sandwich again and nothing else. And if your child refuses the sandwich again, place it back in the fridge. And if your child continues to refuse the sandwich, you can offer them a new choice at the next meal time, not the next snack time. Most children will win any food battle, and that's not news to anybody who has a picky eater. You cannot control if your child eats the food offered, but you can control what is offered and when. However, you can guarantee that if you begin to make a separate meal for the child, this will become a pattern of learned behavior. Some additional strategies to remember are: accept that your child will say no and learn not to react. This is tough, but try to limit your facial expressions and try not to reason or talk them into a choice. Accept that they have chosen not to eat and leave it at that. Try to stimulate hunger by only offering water between meals and limit juice and milk to recommended amounts with meals. Offer choice. Choice works surprisingly well. It gives your child some control over what goes into their mouth. Hold up the two choices and wait for them to make a choice. Either they will look at it, they'll reach for it, or maybe they'll tell you. But whatever you do, don't offer a third choice. If they don't choose either two, then they choose nothing. Physical play not only stimulates hunger, but helps the child to be more aware of their body and the signals of hunger and thirst. Provide consistent meal and snack times. A visual schedule is a great way to help your child understand what is expected, but also see what is coming after the meal. You can remind your child by pointing to it. First eating, then play. If your child appears to experience gastrointestinal stomach discomfort from eating, talk to your doctor about possible strategies to reduce discomfort. Treatment may include ways to prevent constipation or reflux or supplements to support nutrition. Here is an example of a simple visual schedule created by the BoardMaker program. You as a caregiver have access to BoardMaker through the KidsAbility Resource Library. You may wish to talk to your speech therapist or occupational therapist about making a schedule that matches your typical day. Always keep it simple at first with 2 to 4 items. You can also Google visual schedule to find out ideas of how other parents have planned their day. A visual schedule can help your child learn how to follow a routine, figure out what's next without using any words, and may help reduce anxiety about eating. Setting up for mealtime success is a document that you received at the time of your referral. You may have tried some or all of the ideas, but let's go back to each suggestion and see if we can give you more ideas to make mealtime a better time in your day. Provide comfortable seating with support. At this age, children are often too big for high chairs and too small for adult-sized chairs. Seat belts, which help to keep focus and attention, are often absent. Even if using a booster seat, your child's feet are not grounded to the floor or touching your footrest. Some children are distracted by their bodies moving about more freely in a bigger chair or anxious about not feeling safe and secure. Anxiety and distractions can be reduced by finding a child-sized seat. Perhaps all eating together at a smaller table or using a booster with a foot support or a height-right chair. If possible, eat at a table. Use a child-friendly size spoon, fork, knife, and a cup. Encourage your child to feed themselves. This is messy, but it gives him or her control over the process of eating. Feeding themselves is an important skill that works on coordinating hand function, head movements, and pulling food from the utensil. I'd also encourage a dull, child-safe knife to practice the skill of cutting. Start with already soft foods such as cooked carrots or pasta. Again, a good hand skill, but gives your child control over the size of the bite. We are a culture of sippy cups and on the go. When possible, try to use an open cup when at a table and safely seated. Your child will need to use the front of his mouth and lips to control the rate. He or she will be able to feel the fluid and rate better than a sippy cup. This skill may take practice and is definitely messy, and you may want to try straw drinking instead, but do it from an open cup. Face it, your child might not eat when at the table at first. Use the time at the table to talk or just spend time together. Allow some quiet toys after the first few minutes, especially if your child doesn't want to eat. Try and keep your child at the table for up to 20 minutes. However, you may need to start where they're at and gradually increase your expectations to 20 minutes. Remember that as a parent, you can expect your child to sit at the table, but you cannot force them to eat. Eating is the choice of your child. Eating is a sensory activity. There are many sights and smells and tactile experiences that go along with eating. However, as caregivers, we need to encourage self-feeding. It is messy, but allows your child more control over the skill of eating. Messy eating allows for a bigger sensory learning experience. However, some children are sensitive to sensory inputs which can impact feeding. Allowing them to tolerate and explore foods in a stress-free environment will help to increase their comfort during this experience. Limit snacking or grazing. Research has shown that children who graze actually take in less calories. Therefore, it is important to have regular meal times and 2 small snacks a day, offering only water between meal times. No milk, no juice. Offer a choice of 2 healthy small snacks only between meals. Try to allow for about 2.5 hours between meals and snacks. This will assist in creating hunger. Limit eating time to 30 minutes. 30 minutes is too long for many children. If a child's going to eat, it'll happen in the first 20 minutes. If your child is not eating, encouraging them to stay at the table for at least 15 to 20 minutes. If your child is not sitting at the table at all and eating on the go, start with sitting for 1 minute and then revert to the usual pattern. Try a first then visual schedule as depicted in the slide. Then try to gradually increase this time until you get to 20 minutes or more. This may take several weeks or months. Limit distractions. Many parents tell us that they use distractions in order to get their child to eat. Children who are watching TV or playing on the iPad are not learning the skills that they need to eat. They are less aware of their body and less aware of their surroundings. If you're in this trap, how do you change the pattern? Try to use the change the cycle idea we spoke about earlier. However, expect slow change. Start with a small change. You may wish to start with your child's best mealtime and start with 3 bites of undistracted mealtime before allowing the distractor again. This is an ideal time to have a first then board or visual schedule to help your child understand your expectations. Keep mealtimes enjoyable. This is likely the hardest and most important tip. Mealtime may be the most stressful part of everyone's day. Refer to the stress and anxiety reducing ideas provided by the social worker in the Picky Eaters Parent Strategies handout. Here are some online examples for using technology to introduce fun to food. You can use the links and ideas above during non-eating times to allow your children to explore food in a fun and non-threatening way. Your child will see many different types of food, but in a game format, no eating required. Up210.com. This is a child-friendly website with food-related games you might want to try. A couple of examples are you can cook your own biscuits, make breakfast for a parent, make a sandwich for a friend, or put your shopping away. Next steps. What should happen next? Well, start with choosing 1 to 2 ideas from this workshop. Set a simple, achievable goal, such as, my child will allow a new food on their plate once a day. Be patient, but be persistent. Gradually increase your expectation. In this example, looking at the food might be increased to bringing the food close to their face so they can smell it. Make changes very slowly. Expect change to happen gradually over weeks, not days. It may be helpful to track your goal. Sometimes change appears so small that we forget where we started from. What else can I do? Talk to your family doctor if you have concerns about nutrition or weight gain. Talk to your occupational therapist or request a referral if your child is not starting to explore new foods in a month or 2. Talk to a social worker or request a referral if stress is a concern. We hope that you found this presentation informative and a first step towards making mealtimes more enjoyable at home.